Welcome to the Smarter Science of Slim, the scientifically proven program where you eat more and exercise less to burn fat and boost health.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everybody, Jonathan Bailor back with another Smarter Science of Slim show. Very excited about today's show. We have a food educator, just a food enthusiast. I love that. We need more food enthusiasts. Food is definitely something to be enthusiastic about. I don't know the last time I was enthusiastic about some processed soy lecithin or this nonsense. I want to get passionate and educated about real food. She is the proprietor and founder of the wonderful website. If you haven't checked it out, please do so, nourishedkitchen.com. And she is the author of the upcoming 10-speed press title, Nourished Kitchen, Farm-to-Table Recipes for the Traditional Foods Lifestyle, which I like the traditional foods lifestyle. I like to call it the what we did before everything went wrong lifestyle, which makes a lot of sense to me. Jenny McGruther, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I'm really happy to be here. And I definitely share your appreciation and enthusiasm for real food.
Well, Jenny,
it's so much joy.
It's a pleasure to have you. I just got off an interview myself, and they were like, "Oh, is what you're talking about this paleo caveman diet?" And I said, when did eating things that we ate for the entirety of human history become a diet? Isn't that just the normal way to eat?
I know. I can really identify with that. And it's amazing how quickly and how profoundly our relationship with food changed in the last, 50 to 100 years even. It hasn't been that long that we've been reliant upon processed foods. And during that time when our food systems and culinary heritage has changed, we've really seen a decline in overall wellness. And I'd say a decline in our true enjoyment of real food as well.
That true enjoyment of real food, Jenny, I think is the key to overcoming this, because so often health, there's actually been studies done on this, and if you say that this is a healthy food or a healthy recipe, the feeling people get is a negative feeling. Like health is associated with negativity, whereas what we're talking about here, these traditional whole healing foods, are really the most delicious foods available to us.
Absolutely, and I think that that's one of the biggest things I try to combat in my work is that the idea that healthy foods and eating a nutrient-dense diet is somehow restrictive or punitive. We need to stop looking at a relationship with food in terms of good and bad, and as well as punishment and not. I see a lot of newcomers to the real food movement struggle with the concept of truly enjoying their food, enjoying the butter, enjoying the pâtés, or enjoying fresh fruit and heirloom vegetables. There always seems to be some sort of component where there's an element of worry, an element of restriction, and an element of good versus bad, as though we have to paint all of our food within this microcosm of black and white.
I love the point about conscious. It's like we've been brainwashed into thinking our bodies are stupid. Like, unless we intervene, they're just going to go crazy, and they don't know what they actually need to eat. We need to consciously count calories. We can't trust when we're hungry. We can't trust when we're satisfied. But it seems like there's some truth to that. When you eat non-food, your brain circuitry goes haywire. But when you eat actual food, just like everyone did prior to the obesity and diabetes epidemic, no one thought about this. They just ate, and they didn't get fat, and they didn't become diabetic. It's not too good to be true. It's reality, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, we talk about our great-great-grandparents, offhand saying, well, my great-grandfather, he ate bacon and smoked cigarettes until he was 99 years old. So how do I know what's healthy and what's not? And I find that very funny, because I think that it shows how much we've lost in terms of being in touch with real food, in touch with hunger, and satisfaction as well. And I think that a lot of us, especially in the last, I would say 30 years, there's been a diversion from just simply sitting down at the table to eat and enjoy your food. And there's been a focus on calories in, calories out, macronutrients, and as though we can if we only consume specific things in a specific way, we'll suddenly have health. And I think that we really need to embrace and trust our bodies and eat with conscious effort, mindfulness, and intention. And when you trust your body and you can say, okay, now I'm satisfied, it's a very liberating feeling. And I think that an embrace of traditional and real foods, however you come by them, is the first step on making that happen.
Jenny, some people hear what you just said, which I agree with, and I know the listeners agree with wholeheartedly. They hear that and they think that's a little woo-woo. Like, listen to your body. But I just don't get why people think that. Animals who are not nearly as intelligent as humans, in fact, they don't even have the portion of the brain, the neocortex, that allows us to count calories. Not that we need to, but there's a reason your dog doesn't count calories. It can't. But somehow animals, instinctually know how to feed themselves. Are we to believe that we are less capable at staying alive than our animal brethren?
I think that's a very valid point. And I think it's a struggle for a lot of people who have come to the traditional foods movement from outside to begin to trust their instincts in terms of eating and normalizing their eating habits in that respect. But you're right. Animals, they know what to eat. They eat until they're satisfied and they go on their way. There's not a head game associated with their food intake. And I think that that's where we need to return if we're going to seek true health. And remember that health isn't just how our body functions, and health isn't just the absence of disease like obesity or diabetes. Health is a holistic way of practicing your life. It's lack of stress. It's finding joy in everyday things. And if you're obsessed with food intake, with restriction, then I think you're missing a large component of health.
Jenny, one thing I like most about your message and your philosophy is this simple approach, and simple in the sense that we've got more important stuff to do than count calories and calculate macronutrient ratios. At the same time, the traditional foods movement definitely has a segment of it that seems to purport another type of complexity, which is this real, while it seems like everyone in the traditional foods movement and ancestral movement is like, you don't need to count calories. We all agree on that. But then it's like they introduce a new type of complexity into like, you should have kombucha or bone broth, or like this whole food is evil and this one is the one that should be prioritized. What is your take on that?
I've noticed that as well, and I think that that's an offshoot of the past 30 years where we have been obsessed with restriction, and that there hasn't been a difference between restrictive diets and healthy diets. And I think that that's a big struggle for people to come to a traditional foods movement or come to the ancestral health movement and let go of that restriction on a conscious level. I do take issue with the idea that you have to consume kombucha, or that you have to consume or not consume it, or that all of a sudden dairy is bad or grains are bad, or this acai berry is wonderful. The thing is that we're all individuals, and each of our bodies are going to have individual needs. And I think that we need to respect that and honor that our path may be different from the path of somebody else. But I don't buy into the idea that any whole food is a bad food. And I take issue with that component, that restrictive component of the ancestral health and the traditional foods movement.
I love that it sounds like your barometer for success is what really everyone's barometer should be. And does this food further your goals? There's no right or wrong. Does it further your goals? If it furthers your goals, it's right. If it inhibits your goals, it's wrong.
That's exactly right. It's about trusting, what works for you and finding that out. And also, I think it's important to be open to the idea that what works for you at one point in your life may not work for you at a different point in your life. And that we all need to go through cycles where we examine how our actions, not just with relation to food and diet, but with movement, with stress reduction techniques and things like that, how all of those components of health either assist us or inhibit us in achieving our goals.
Jenny, you are extremely articulate and passionate. So I'm curious, what set you on this path to begin with?
Well, In my, like many people, in my teenage years, I found the vegan and the vegetarian movement. And I found it because I was very greatly distressed by what I saw in the treatment of animals in the industrialized system. I didn't know that there was an alternative. And as I became a vegetarian and then later a vegan, I found that my health was declining rapidly. And it didn't make sense because I was doing everything I should have done. I was minimizing animal products, of course, as a vegetarian and then vegan. I was eating a low-fat diet. The fats I were eating were things like canola oil. I was doing everything by the book. I was exercising aerobically a ton, and my health was getting worse and worse and worse. And finally, when I was in college, I was exhausted all the time, but I couldn't sleep, and I had all these health issues. I went to doctor after doctor, and they kept telling me that, it was stress. And eventually, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is one of the most common causes of infertility. I was gaining weight despite the fact that I was eating what was considered to be a healthy low-fat diet. And I was suffering from Graves' disease as well. And at one point, I was looking down the barrel of osteoporosis, and I was only 24 years old. Finally, I reached out and I found an endocrinologist who was treating me for the thyroid disease. And it was with working with her, I went on a gluten-free diet, and I began to find traditional whole foods while I was exploring this journey of why my health was so poor when I was so young. And so despite the fact that I had all these health issues and conditions, and I had literally been told that I would never have children. And imagine, hearing that as a woman of only, 23, 24 years old, you're never going to have kids, plan to adopt. It was a troubling time for me. So in working with the endocrinologist, I went on a gluten-free diet. From there, I discovered a whole new area of traditional foods as well as the ancestral health movement. And I began to embrace real fat, real food, grass-fed meats, and I was pregnant within 3 months. And so it was this movement, this desperation, this sense of illness and loss. It was that time in my life that I came to traditional whole foods and then recovered my health. And I'm so thankful for having been sick, because if I hadn't been sick, I would never have been able to explore this movement with such passion.
Jenny, I so appreciate you sharing that story with us, because it is so inspirational, and I think it's so representative of the challenge millions of Americans face, which is getting into this mindset where they must be wrong or broken because they're doing everything they've been told. I can't tell you how many people I've talked with that say, Jonathan, I'm eating 1,400 calories per day, and I'm exercising till I'm exhausted, and I feel sick and tired. What's wrong with me?
Right. That's exactly right. And I think that, it's a very, I wish it weren't common, Jonathan, but I think it really is quite common that people are essentially doing everything by the book. And they still are not seeing the perfect health to which we're all entitled.
Well, Jenny, I know one of the biggest, quote unquote, weapons in the arsenal that we have against this battle of nonsense and getting back simply to whole foods and simple, enjoyable eating is your work. And you have a big inflection point coming up with your new book, Nourished Kitchen, Farm-to-Table Recipes for the Traditional Foods Lifestyle, coming out in spring of 2014. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired this book and what we can look forward to reading in it?
Well, the Nourished Kitchen it's a beautiful book, and my inspiration in writing it largely came from my kitchen garden, or the pasture where we go and we look at the animals that feed us. For example, we go visit our raw milk cows, or we go visit the rangelands where we see the truly free range cattle who will then later become dinner for my family. It was inspired largely by the farms and the gardens in my area, and it's a tribute to those farmers whose hard work has nourished my family and brought my family to profound health. And in the book, I talk about my journey, my love affair with farm-to-table cooking and real food. And the book also focuses heavily on just back to basics, old world recipes. I also teach a lot of simple techniques for making bone broths and stocks, organ meats that are wonderfully delicious, heirloom vegetables, and of course everything is served with a hefty dose of honest-to-goodness real fat as well. And that's the essence of the book. It's a tribute to local farms, it's a tribute to traditional cooking, and it's a celebration of lard and butter and heirloom vegetables and all sorts of wonderful things.
Well, certainly the word celebration is apropos based on the description you just gave. Well, Jenny, where can we learn more about the upcoming book, what you're doing in general, and just get more Nourished Kitchen, Jenny McGruther goodness?
Well, the best thing to do would be to visit nourishedkitchen.com. That is my website. On the website, you'll find some wonderful things, lots of traditional foods recipes that are posted a couple times a week through the blog. We also offer meal plans. So for those families who are new to the traditional foods movement or new to the ancestral health movement, and they just want some simple guidelines for getting real food on the table, we've got some excellent meal plans that provide shopping lists, to-do lists, and some basic recipes. Also, you'll find more about the book on nourishedkitchen.com as well.
Beautiful. Well, Jenny McGruther, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an absolute pleasure. And listeners, if you haven't already checked out, please do pop over to Jenny's website, which is nourishedkitchen.com. It is absolutely something to celebrate and will help you bring a little bit more common sense and just savory goodness and simplicity back into the kitchen, which is what we all need. So again, Jenny McGruther, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Listeners, I hope you enjoyed this wonderful conversation as much as I did. And please remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and live better. Chat with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet.
You can get fabulous free SANE recipes over at carriebrown.com.
And don't forget your 100% free eating and exercise quick start program, as well as free, fun, daily tips delivered right into your inbox at bailorgroup.com. That's BAILOR group.com.